Aultemus and the group, now including Markon, are sitting around a heat rune not far from where they fought Valeria and the Spectre. The sun is setting, Zenti is fast asleep using her backpack as a pillow. Views on Aultemus and Ciora are sitting in front of her, while Markon sits on the opposite side of the rune, across from everybody. She got dispersed while in wind form, so she's going to be out for a while, Fuson mutters to the group. Ciora nods and channels her sage energy into her hands and moves them around Zenti's body, making direct contact as she inspects her injuries. Fuson and Aultemus look at each other, and then over to Markon, his hammer flat on the ground. The two get up and walk over to Mark. He looks at them, sitting cross-legged. "Hey!" Fuson grunts as he quickly slashes his wing in front of him, slicing a tiny cut into Markon's cheek. "Ah, what was that?" Markon growls, remaining on the floor. A red welt flares as Markon winces and forms a tiny bit of water on his fingers to wipe the cut. "Oh, I was testing you, You passed," Fuson says shyly, pulling his wings behind his back again. "Bird brain," Mark shakes his head. "Thanks for saving her back," the Aultemus starts. "She was fine, actually. I wasn't sure where your other friend came from. I saw you two unconscious, though, before the Astromancer took the crazy blonde girl with him," Mark explains. "He was here?" Aultemus gasps. "Yeah, he came to get the girl and left," Markon growls. "So you're here for Trent, I take it, judging by how much you love him," Ciora calls out from behind the boys as she walks up to them. Stretching her hands and arms, Mark very obviously rolls his eyes in response. "So what happened after Creedom?" Markon looks over to Ciora and lets out a long, drawn-out sigh. "Well, I managed to get a boat over to Averon, and I let off some steam," he says, looking down at the dirt. "Why did you come here after?" Aultemus asks. "One of the nobles told me about some place around here that might give me a lead on the Astromancer. A lot of information is kept from the citizens, and they apparently knew something out here. And I killed them." "What?" "That's not really what happened," Aultemus blurts, surprised. He turns to the group, who all share in the same shocked expression. Markon's eyes widen as he realizes he wasn't paying attention to what he was actually saying. Sorry, too much information." "You can just kill people? Just like that?" Ciora hesitates. "Yes." "How?" "I don't know, Wait, where's Rilo?" Markon asks, finally looking around. "He died," Aultemus stutters, his voice low. "How?" Markon demands, his tone harsh and urgent. Fuson keeps quiet, looking at his trembling wings. "We were at the Nexus, investigating the crackling sound. There was an arcane aphanite there," Aultemus explains. Markon's eyes widen in disbelief. "Arcane? No way." Markon shook his head. "Are you talking about Adamar? That guy wasn't an arcane aphanite." "What do you mean?" Aultemus asks. "I saw him cast arcane magic." "He just wasn't. He knew like 2 arcane spells he spent his whole life learning. He doesn't know much of anything else, and I don't know what his true affinity is. He didn't bother learning it, apparently," Markon explains. The group looks at each other in confusion. "Sad," Ciora draws out. After a beat, Ciora pipes up again. "So, how do you do it then? Just kill people?" she asks Mark. "I'm desensitized," Mark deadpans. "Creedom puts a lot of money into the military. My parents gave me up when they found out I was a kinetic aphanite, and she sent me to the academy. When I came back, when I was of age, I was put into the military at 16. I'm 28 now, so 12 years of hearing that non-humans are nothing but animals, yada yada, you know." "How are you able to talk to us like this, then? Wouldn't you still be desensitized?" Ciora questions, raising an eyebrow. "I spent a lot of time with Venus. She wasn't like the military people, so it kind of calmed me down seeing the nicer side of things. I tried to help people out as I could at her behest and because I wanted to eventually," Markon explains. "But not enough time to become desensitized to killing people," Ciora scoffs. "I've only killed like 2 people before Averond, and the nobles on Averond were pretty easy to kill, or justify killing. I was angry, and they got what they deserved," Markon growls. "Do you feel bad for those 2? Ciora begins, but Markon cuts her off. "Yes, I do. But I don't want to talk about it. And I don't want to psychopath in our group, Ciara says firmly. I'm only here for the Astromancer, Marcon snaps. I don't care, you're unstable, Ciara declares. What do you want me to do then? Marcon stands up, his fists clenched. The group takes a step back and moves in a defensive stance, but Marcon notices and takes a deep breath, slowly calming down and sitting back down on the floor. What can I do to make you feel at ease? Marcon asks calmly. Ciara places her hands on her hips and looks between Aultemus and Fuson. Leave the hammer. You're too dangerous with it. We can beat you easily without it, and if you're competent, you'll still be able to help without it, Ciara commands. Marcon stares at Ciara and lets out a sigh before lying down away from the group. Ciara walks over and picks up the hammer, attempting to lift it with one arm, but it won't budge. She infuses herself with magic, and with some struggle, deadlifts the hammer onto her shoulders. Aultemus, come with me, Ciara requests, and Aultemus nods, following behind her, as Fuson walks over to Zenti and sits beside her. A translucent image of Elodie appears sitting next to Fuson, but only he can see her. You really did a good job, Fuson points out. Thank you. My apologies for the damage to your body, Elodie smiles. It's okay. I'll just have Ciara patch me up. Aultemus and Ciara step into an ocean of golden grass, obsidian spires piercing through the surface. Once the camp is out of sight, Ciara scans for a patch of thinner grass beside a spire. Make a hole here, Ciara requests, exhaling. Aultemus pushes his hands down, creating a perfectly square hole that goes deep down into the ground. Ciara tosses the hammer into the hole and releases her magic, while Aultemus covers the hole back up. She gives him a long look, then punches him as hard as she can in the chest, knocking him over. Tears stream down her face red hot as she subtly twitches in anger and sorrow. I'm tired, Aultemus, she managed to say, trying to take deep breaths but stuttering as she inhales. You... She shakes her head. I can't. She whimpers, looking around and appearing deep in thought, wiping her face and no longer crying. She takes a long, deep breath, her composure slowing coming back together. You have no idea how much I'm indebted to you. You've done much more than anyone could have asked for, and for a stranger, Aultemus admits, slowly getting up. I can't repay you, and I've been worried this whole time that you would just leave, and I wouldn't blame you. You're probably the strongest one out of all of us, and I'm trying to lead by your example. I hope I can one day. Ciara looks at him surprised, her eyes wide as she begins to cry again. She continues to stare at him, wiping her face and nodding. She shuffles around her armor and takes out a metal card the Astromancer woman gave her, pushing it into Aultemus's chest. I get mad you won't take charge even though we're all here because of you. I'm not even sure why, Ciara says softly, turning back toward the camp. Let's go back. Aultemus wakes up. It's still dark outside, but he looks over to see Fuson is standing on top of the nearest obsidian pillar, staring out to the west. Aultemus gets up and sees a small rodent with large ears sleeping by Ciara. Everyone else is still asleep. Fuson? Aultemus asks sleepily. No, it's Elodie, she states. She seems to be staring at something, so Aultemus follows her gaze and sees a distant volcano which, albeit very far, still commands the horizon. A vein of magma glows in the night, even from this distance, as a thin line of red contrasting the dark pale blue sky. The top is also lit ablaze from the magma, but it appears to be extending upward in a constant flow, forming a ball of light at the top. What is that? Aultemus asks, squinting. Mizex. I don't know why he's out, but he does this all the time. I wish he'd stop, Elodie explains as the blob raises its arms and a plume of lava erupts. How long has this been going on? A couple hours. The orcs have always had to deal with Mizex. I've always felt bad for them. That kid we met is going to grow up and change this world. I hope he does a good job. Creedom falling is definitely a plus for the orcs. Elodie's stare breaks from the volcano as she looks at Aultemus, her eyes shimmering in the moonlight. Do you think I was punished? She asks as she watches her wings. One day I was just in this body. Aultemus looks between her, the ground, and the volcano. It's okay. I'm just, how do you say, Speaking my feelings. It feels nice. Aultemus tries to grin, but his heart pangs with guilt, so he stares at the ground again. Can you show me your plasma practice? Elodie asks, smiling. Aultemus cracks a smile and lets out a determined sigh. Sure, he says, motivated. He puts his hands together, and the yellow electricity turns into a ball in between his palms. The arcs of lightning become more controlled as the ball turns into a solid mass. It begins to fluctuate and ripple, but inevitably bursts in the arcs of lightning right up his arms. I'll get it eventually, Aultemus says with a sigh. I'm too tired right now to be disappointed. Fuson lets out a laugh, catches Aultemus off guard, as he looks up and sees Fuson's eyes are now teal again. Hey, I was listening to... No. It's my body, Pine Nuts, Fuson says. Pine Nuts? Why are you up? Why are you? The lady wanted to see her estranged cousin twice removed or whatever. Okay, why did she just leave? I kicked her out. It's our agreement. They stay silent for a moment as the sun begins to rise. Pale blues from the sky turn into purples, then golds, and then oranges. Fuson squints as the sun rises in his eyes. Look, all, how romantic. This is where we kiss, I think, Fuson jokes, pantomiming him flipping through some papers. Aultemus rolls his eyes before laughing, causing Fuson to chuckle afterwards. I'm going to clean up, Aultemus yawns as he walks into the grass. That was rude. He needs to learn plasma, Elodie chirps. Yeah, he'll get it eventually, Fuson responds nonchalantly. Fuson turns toward camp, noticing Marcon waking up behind him. They look at each other, and Marcon raises his hand in acknowledgement and awkwardly puts it down as he walks toward a nearby lake. Siora's next, after a few minutes, as she glances around in confusion. They're cleaning up, Fuson says dryly to Siora. The rodent that was beside her scurries into the grass without Siora noticing. Morning, she responds, rubbing her eyes with some conjured water around her hands. Morning. Fuson continues to look at the volcano. Siora turns to him, gets up, and climbs the rocks he's on. Oh wow, the volcano's erupting, Siora gasps. She turns to Fuson again and notices his blank expression, with his wings folded. Not impressed? I was a little, a couple hours ago. You got up that early? Figures you wait. That's Mizex. Siora points, gasping. Yeah. Still nothing. I guess you knew then, huh? Listen, I've got one of them living in my head. They're not exactly all that mystical to me anymore. Not that I cared about them in the first place. Siora cocks her head and nods slowly. She continues to watch the volcano, sitting down next to Fuson. Behind them, Aultemus and Marcon emerge from the grass, albeit from opposite directions. They lock eyes for a moment before seeing Siora up with Fuson. Hey guys, Fiora says to the group. Zenty wakes, getting up and turning to Aultemus, noticing everyone is watching him. Aultemus nervously pauses and lets the others slowly wave at him. Let's keep going then. I think we're going southwest? Aultemus stammers out. Hold on. You're forgetting the meathead showed up out of nowhere from Creedom, Zenty states, pointing at Marcon. He would have had to come from the opposite direction we did. She takes a large bite out of a bar from her backpack. I walked along the coast and then came straight north, from around where I thought I'd find you, but I missed the vault, if that's what you're asking, Marcon snaps back. Pretty lucky you found us out here, Fuson says. Yeah, lucky for you. The night sky thing would have killed all of you. When I was interrogating the nobles, they told me about a vault in an orc city that had some rumors of an astromancer they were planning on assassinating. Sounds like the right brawl park I find you all in, Marcon explains. Everyone gets up from their positions and looks at Aultemus, who motions them all to begin moving. They walk through the savannah, observing all of the wildlife and taking the occasional necessary breaks. Fuson and Elodie bicker over control and occasionally giving Aultemus a pointer on plasma magic. Most of the group doesn't interact with Marcon, as he mostly keeps to himself, walking slightly behind everybody else. The landscape begins to change as the pillars become sparser. After a couple hours, there appears to be none left until they see one remaining isolate on the edge of the savannah, before it turns into plains, the grass shaven down almost unnaturally. Guys, stop! Sura yells, although not in fear, The group stops to look at her, but before they could say anything, the ground rumbles and an obsidian spire rises from the ground. The spire splits apart in two, with sage green energy flowing through the rocks, connecting all of the pieces together as it forms into a 20-foot tall, vaguely humanoid form. The largest of all the rocks that forms in the middle has a hole that begins to glow like an eye. The legs separate as the creature leans down and grumbles at the group. Earth Elemental, Siora calmly states. Aultemus is horrified and immediately begins channeling lightning in his arms and aims his hands at the creature, but Markon runs over and tackles him to the ground. Reacting quickly, Siora runs over to the toppled pair and releases spirit mist to calm them down. Aultemus, what is that? We can't fight this, we'll lose, Siora tells him. Aultemus looks at her confused. What? I thought elementals were violent. Where I'm from, they're all violent, and you're telling me that we can't take it? It's one elemental, Aultemus yells, shaking from Undermark, who releases him. Aultemus turns to the elemental, whose head tilts to the side a little, making quiet grumbling noises. Well, we're not from where you're from. Elementals are just like any other creature here. If anything, they're mostly always docile because they don't have any predators. Water and air are the only dangerous ones because they can drown or suffocate you by accident. But they don't do it on purpose, and you never meet fire elementals, Siora explains. The elementals lets out another louder grumble as it points in the direction of the group was traveling. Slowly turns around back to them and waits. Fuson and Siora jog up to it and walk behind it as it lumbers forward. The plains are barren. The grass looks healthy, but there is nothing to disrupt the landscape, and obsidian spires are in the distance to the right and left. It's not long before the group sees raised beds of dirt in perfect uniform rows. The elemental lets out another low grumble as it leans over to one of the raised beds, which have perfectly sloped sides that rise about 10 feet. On the flanks of the beds, pointing in both directions of the sunrise and sunset, are shiny dark blue panels that extend the length of the raised swells. Looking forward, these rows of beds continue on into the distance as far as the eye can see. The makeshift hallways made by the dark panels on the sides of these perfectly trapezoid-shaped hills give off an eerie feeling. The group slowly inspects the environment as the elemental watches them, occasionally grumbling. Siora goes to put her hands on one of the panels facing the sun, but the intense heat burns her fingers. She yelps and pulls her hand back. Don't touch the panels. The sides away from the sun aren't hot, Markon notices. Oh, do you know what these are? Siora asks, holding her injured hand. Aultemus shakes his head, and Siora looks over to the elemental. I'm sorry, we don't know what these are, and I don't think we can do anything either, Siora says in earnest, shaking her head no. The elemental grumbles and begins lumbering back to the savannah. Does it not like these things or something? Since when do elementals care about anything? Senti scoffs. They're still living beings, Birdbrain. Whatever these are, they must not be natural. I can't think of any other reason that the elemental would be asking for our help for something, Siora ponders. The group continues forward between the raised beds on the side facing away from the sun. Siora runs her fingers along the walls of the panels. Has this ever come up in descriptions of the vault? This seems strange enough to be related to it, and I think we're close to it, Markon asks. No, but some Valkyrie surveyors speak of an area around the vault that's too hot to fly over. Northeast of the vault is a no-fly zone. A couple Valkyries have died out here. This might be it. Zenti drones on, staring at the panel wall. They walk through the trench until there's a break. Fuson and Zenti don't hesitate to fly up, as there's no longer any hills with panels, and see plains abruptly and completely turning into a sheer cliff face. They fly over the edge and see the ground fall thousands of feet to what look like marshlands. Scanning the cliff face, they see the bottom there is a vault, which appears as a giant bronze and tan door, a couple of 100 feet tall and completely made out of metal, with a symbol of 3 identical circles in the center, one on the top and 2 right beneath it. At the bottom of the door appears to be a rectangular cutout, a smaller door, they realize, and an equally sized one off to the side of the vault proper as well. The 2 fly back over to the group, who have paused to sit down. We found the vault. It looks like it does in any report that you see of it, Fuson explains. So what's the history of this thing to you guys? Aultemus asks. It's just a mysterious giant metal door that's out there. No one has ever been inside it, No one knows what it means, but it's always been there since the beginning of recorded history. Some of the orcs in the area worship it, think it'll open itself one day to some kind of messiah that will return, but none of the gods associate themselves with it, which also either discredits it or makes people believe in an even higher power, Marcon explains. Fusan's eyes change to silver. Yes, none of the gods have wanted to touch it or even been able to get inside ourselves. Zephyr says it's airtight, and Dromo says he cannot interact with the material, but it's a very large structure inside where the plane rises at this location, Eladir explains. Aultemus scans the environment and notices a small metal beam extending out from the ground. He runs over to it, everyone else following. They surround the beam, which appears brass-colored and metallic with a matte finish. There's a circular silver panel on the front. Aultemus takes out the metal card from his pocket, and Fuson, his eyes once again teal, immediately notices 3 circles on it. Hey, that card has the same symbol the door has, he pointed out. Everyone looks at one another. This is like the biggest discovery of the vault in history, Ciora gasps. We're probably about to be the first ones inside, Marcon sighs, crossing his arms. He twitches nervously. Oh, the meat man is nervous. That's hilarious, Fuson boasts. I am too, Zenti chirps. Aultemus looks at the card and puts it on top of the beam, and nothing happens. He grabs it and puts it against the silver panel, and they hear a monotonous beep, causing Ciora and Zenti to gasp. The silver panel has a blinking blue light at the center now, but it's still nothing else happens. For a moment. Slowly, they hear the sound of gravel churning as a big metal box emerges from the upheaving dirt and grass effortlessly. The side facing them opens downward to reveal that it's hollow within. The blue light and pole turns green with another beep, and is now solid. This looks like the platforms that move people up and down large buildings in human cities, Zenti points out. Yeah, except there's no magic, right? You guys don't feel any mana being used? Ciora stutters as everyone shakes their head. Aultemus takes a deep breath and commandingly walks inside the box. He sees 2 buttons on the inside with arrows that point up and down. Ciora runs in after him. Wait! Marcon also runs in just before the door closes and the box shoots back down into the ground. Zenti and Fuson immediately react and fly up over the cliff edge again. They see a metal chute just before another door closes on top of it. The inside of the box lights up with a soft, warm, yellowish glow as it shakes, but virtually makes no sound. Ciora takes deep breaths repeatedly and looks around. A small screen shows a diagram of the cliff face with a tube showing where they are. I don't like... Ciora stutters, but after a moment the door opens and the group finds themselves at the bottom of the cliff with the metal door beside them. Fuson and Zenti glide and dive down to meet them. Ciora rushes out of the box. Aultemus and Marcon follow shortly after. That works, Fuson cheerily states. Ciora takes a series of deep breaths with Aultemus walking up behind her. He places his hand on her shoulder, and she smiles at him but gently brushes his hand off. Not enough trees for you, hun, Zenti remarks. Ciora gives her a glare. The 2 stare daggers at each other, but Ciora visibly gets angry, her face contorting into a scowl, but she takes another deep breath and follows Aultemus as he begins to walk over to the giant vault door. Marcon also eagerly following behind. Zenti scoffs and Fuson jabs her shoulder. Why are you still being like this? Fuson whispers to her. We're going to be the first people to enter the vault, and you're picking at the elf's anxiety. You almost got us killed when we were in the Orc City. I honestly don't know how you turned into whatever you are right now. This ordeal is just showing the real you to everyone. Zenti pouts angrily and turns to Fuson as he walks away. She slowly begins walking forward. Hey guys, look! Meaty Mark is almost frolicking at the thought of getting into the vault, Fuson yells. Ciora's jog turns more into a crawl as he winces at Fuson's comment. What, nothing? Fine, I'm excited too. Fuson catches up to the group, while Zenti still lags behind everyone else, surrounding the small door at the bottom of the massive vault door. A similar silver panel with a very dim blue circle at the center stares back at them. Wait! Zenti bursts. Sorry, Ciora. I also would have liked to be in that box. You know, nowhere to fly, so I understand. I'm sorry. Fuson tilts his head back as he widens his eyes as Ciora crosses her arms, unfazed. Thank you, she replies plainly. Turning back to the matter at hand, Aultemus puts up the card to the panel, like before, and the blue light begins to blink as a red light at the top of the door shines for a few seconds before the blue light on the panel turns green with a beep, and the door unlatches with a drawn-out hiss. It slowly opens itself and the group peers into the dark nothingness beyond the door. Aultemus slowly creeps up as soon as his foot makes contact with the metal door. The chamber lights up as a giant empty room comes to life with the white lights get turned on silently. Everyone inches as the odd smell of the room fills their noses. It's perfectly clean environment. The chemical lemon smell feels alien to them as they have trouble processing everything around them. The room is as tall as the mountainside, a couple thousand feet tall, and several hundred feet wide to match the main door. There are various odd circular and rectangular fixtures and protrusions on the wall, varying in size, and a giant window at the very back of the chamber, which extends into the mountainside another couple thousand feet. The group treads forward. The only sound filling their ears is their own footsteps as they process the environment. The metals are perfectly clean with tan and blue colorings, and their gazes fall down as they realize they've been subconsciously following an arbitrary path. The door behind them closing and shutting in a hiss. Fuson turns around at the sound and then notices a small square creature behind them. "Oh shit, what is that?" he blurts out quietly. Siora yelps as they turn to look at the creature. It's a perfectly rectangular metal object, no more than 2 feet tall, with a green light where it meets the floor. The group sees tiny footprints of dirt between them and the object, but none behind it. It continues moving toward them, but stops a few feet away, the green light now blinking, as a soft whir can be heard before it falls silently and stops. "It's cleaning," Zenti says in awe. "I can't believe it snuck up on us like that." "Nothing in here makes any noise," Marcon remarks, looking at the robot. "Well, I don't think it's going to harm us. Let's go," Aultemus nervously commands as he continues walking forward. Fuson flies up and glides around the chamber, circling around the room, as Zenti turns back to see the cleaning robot gently following behind. They finally reach the end of the chamber and reach a set of doors under an enormous glass pane. "We should check all the rooms, right?" Siora asks. She then squats down and opens her palms and concentrates at a point in the door. "At least we can use magic once we're inside. This is gonna take a little while." Aultemus nods and puts the card up to the panel next to the door, opening instantly. The door opens in a small hallway with 2 or more elevators on opposite ends, and a small, wide room with an entirely glass wall at the opposite end facing the group. Inside, they see 2 rows of 4 towers, all completely black except for one of the front left corner with some green and blue flashing lights. Marcon holds the door as Aultemus walks forward. There's another panel by the door, and holding the card up only gets to flash red and have the lower toned beep. "This one didn't like it. It won't open," Aultemus yells at the group walking back. Siora finishes her spell, and from the ground, under her hand, emerge 5 tiny spirits that look like rocks bundled together, no taller than 1 foot. One of them goes to the other door Mark is holding and pushes it as far as it can go before holding it there. "I'll go check the other door. I assume you guys are going up?" Marcon says as he watches the tiny spirit walking over to the other door. Aultemus jogs over and unlocks it, a spirit already waiting for him to hold the door open. "I'll go with Jarhead," Fuson remarks. "Gotta break in the new guy, you know?" "I'm staying here," Zenti states, sitting down on the large empty chamber, staring at the cleaning robot. Marcon and Fuson walk into an even emptier room than the last, except the walls and floor are perfectly homogeneous, completely white and matching in texture. A soft glow makes the room dimmer than the main antechamber as there are no direct lights. "Whoa, this is really hard to look at," Fuson remarks as he steps into the room. The floor is soft like clay and perfect room temperature as he feels the contrast from the cold metal floor. "What the he mumbles. "What?" Marcon lilts, just before he steps into the room, realizing what Fuson was reacting to as soon as he steps on the ground. He bends down to put his hands onto the floor, grips it, and watches as the floor molds to his handprint. It feels like a soft, wet clay, but is perfectly dry and leaves no residue, and it moves as viscous as sand without ever coming apart. Marcon shakes his head, confused, and looks up at Fuson, who is shaking his head. Mark turns to the door and sees Zenti in the other room, looking at her reflection in the polished metal of the cleaning robot. It's 2 red lights in the hull, perfectly in line with Zenti's eyes. Excuse me, are you okay? Markon hesitated, his kinetic magic surrounding himself. Zenti looks over with no hesitation. Yes, why? What are the red lights? Not sure, I was looking at it, then they came up, but nothing happened. They look back, and instead of red lights, they see an inverted triangle slowly filling up from the bottom to the top before disappearing. Suddenly, a calm voice erupts from all around them. Greetings, Kirta and company. We have detected 5 guests in Progenitor Outpost Drearn. We've collected your language data via occipital scan and combined with local stores to let you communicate. We have applied your keycard code to all the doors so that they unlock when you and your guests walk up to them. Current status of base is hibernation. The last update sent to Progenitor Base instructs all outposts to permanently remain in hibernation, but it allows for anyone with access to utilize outpost amenities. The group turns to one another in shock as the moment goes by before a voice states, Voice commands now active. Keycard number 8250498535. Management group, Astromancers. Well, this sounds like a win for us, Siora states, as she claps her hands softly and all the spirits disappear, the doors not moving in response. Yeah, we should head up. You guys still going to check out the other rooms? Aultemus asks. Fuson peeks out from the other room. Yes, I am, Fuson cheerily states. Markon nods along with him. They find a humanoid figure with the same texture as the room, wearing an entirely black suit, also in the same texture, standing in the middle of the room. Those are the kind of clothes Adamar wore, Markon says as he marches up to it. Fuson hesitantly follows. The figure doesn't react to them, walking, but once they are a couple feet away, it opens his eyes and smiles. Hello, honored guests. This is the Chameleon Room, fully fitted with all known features. Let me know what you would like to see, the automaton says in a blank tone. Chameleon Room? Fuson asks, his face scrunching up. That is correct. Just say the word and I may generate it for you, it says. Alright. Show us the world we're on then, Clayface. Clayface. I haven't heard that one before, it says with a smug grin. Very well. You would like to see Drearn from the atmosphere. They hear a hiss of air for a few moments. Then the room slowly fades in the field above the cliff face the vault is dug into. A small pillar that calls the elevator stands next to them. They feel the warmth of the sun on their faces, the song of the breeze blowing across the grass. It all feels real. What the? Did you teleport us? Fuson begins before they start rapidly ascending into the sky. A small circle of dirt below them remains from the field they were in. Markon lets out a scream and completely falls, gripping the ground as tightly as possible. Fuson watches the horizon get more and more curved as more of the world becomes into view. There's a slight sound of rushing air, but it's not nearly as violent as the speed at which they're ascending. Breaking from his stupor as it slows down, Fuson mumbles, Whoa, okay, this is getting kind of high. Sorry, would you like to skip the transition? Most people prefer it as it's less jarring, the automaton states. Yeah. Fuson hesitates, going to the edge of the perfectly circular disk of ground looking at the world. How far up is this? In your measurements, 1,500 kilometers. Markon groans. Wow, okay, skip to the end. Very well. Fuson blinks and the world disappears. Only the blackness of space is in front of him. The galaxy easily more visible intensely than he's ever seen before. I've dimmed the sun a bit. Most users like that setting. Hey Mark, stop pissing yourself and look, Fuson says. Markon looks up and also sees the galaxy rim as far as he can see. He exhales, a sigh of wonder. The various stars in yellows, blues, and reds before it falls into the nebulous blue and purple glow of the galaxy proper. Fuson looks back at the automaton. Hey, He gets interrupted as the full view of the planet is behind the automaton, the clouds swirling above the greens, yellows, and teals of the land and ocean. Wow, Fuson gasps. Markon snaps out of his trance to look back, only to enter a new one as they stare at the planet together for what seems like an eternity. Wait, so what are you here for? Fuson asks slowly. I'm the butler of sorts. but I can also turn into anyone or anything as well, in case more experienced users want to dance or fight or play a game. Fuson looks at the automaton, who is returning a smug look. You sure like that expression for being a clay doll, Fuson rolls his eyes. I aim to please, it says with open arms. All right, show me something funny, Fuson smirks. The automaton cocks an eyebrow at him before melting into the ground. Suddenly, a disk of ground underneath him gives way before Aultemus begins to hover, but Markon falls into space, screaming at the top of his lungs. After a few feet, he begins hovering, still screaming, but Fuson can clearly see Mark isn't moving and bursts into giggles. The automaton reforms from the starscape, shifting back into a white blank human with a black suit and tie, and walks over to Fuson. Pretty cool, huh? It says, the air slowly letting Markon down as his hands touch the solid starscape background. Fuson chuckles. Sure, you got me. Fuck you guys. Send us back to the field, please. The automaton doesn't react, but the room changes back into the field slowly. Markon exhales in relief, getting up from the floor.